Tonight, while you lie here in the quiet, two tiny ships, smaller than a small car, are still drifting outward into the dark. They left our world before most of us were born, quietly, on two ordinary autumn days in 1977, and they have never stopped going. Right now, as you breathe, they are farther from us than any human-made thing has ever been. So far that the light from their tiny radios takes nearly a full day to reach us. So far that they have crossed the very edge of the sun's gentle bubble and slipped out into the great quiet of interstellar space. Their names are Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, and they are still talking to us. It is hard to put into words how strange and tender it is that they are still out there. Built by hand, with technology so old that the entire memory of their computers would not hold a single photograph from your phone. Powered by a slow, warm pulse of plutonium that has been gently fading for 50 years. Carrying, gold-plated and sealed against the cold, a single small record with the sounds and songs of Earth. A letter from us to whomever or whatever might one day find them in the dark. They were meant to last 5 years. They have lasted nearly 50. And every night, somewhere on Earth, enormous quiet antennas tilt up to the sky and listen, patiently, for the faintest whisper of two small voices, calling home from beyond the edge of everything we know. So here is the question I want us to carry together through the quiet hours ahead. What does it mean that two small, patient ships have been quietly drifting outward for half a century, built by hands long retired, powered by a slowly cooling warmth, still whispering home across a silence so deep it takes a day for the light to cross? What does it say about us that we sent them? And what does it mean that they are still out there, faithfully calling, while you lie here in the dark? Welcome. This is Cosmic Nocturne. Get comfortable. Close your eyes if you'd like. You don't need to watch tonight, only listen. Together we're going to drift out with the two small ships, out past the planets, out to the gentle edge of the sun's quiet bubble, and softly across into the great interstellar dark beyond. And we are going to understand them, piece by piece, until they no longer feel like distant machines, but like two small, patient companions sent on our behalf into the long dark, still whispering home for as long as their little warm hearts can hold out. Let your breathing slow as we begin. There is nothing here you need to remember by morning, nothing to hold on to. This is a slow drift out with the two faithful ships, and softly back, told gently enough to carry you toward sleep. You can let your eyes close. You only need to rest and let the quiet truth of these two small travelers settle softly over you. That out there, in the great dark, two patient little messengers are still drifting outward, still whispering home, still doing the long, quiet work we sent them to do. Let each breath grow a little slower, a little deeper. The Voyagers have been on their way for 50 years. They can drift a little longer while you rest. So settle in. There's no hurry. Tonight, we are going out to meet them in the gentle dark. Let's begin with how small they are, because the smallness is part of why I love them. When you hear the word spacecraft, you might picture something enormous, a great gleaming ship, a vast machine glittering with lights. But the Voyagers are nothing like that. Each one is barely the size of a small car, about 800 kilograms, mostly antenna, a great gentle dish reaching outward, like a soft ear cupped to listen, and a soft mouth ready to whisper. Around the dish hang small instruments, like quiet sleeping insects on a flower. Cameras, magnetometers, particle detectors, plasma sensors. And tucked at the heart of each one, a small, slow warmth. A little knot of plutonium gently glowing with the heat of its own slow decay, powering everything the ship will ever do for as long as the warmth lasts. They are not impressive looking. If you had seen one in the workshop where they were built in the late 1970s, you might have mistaken it for something a clever amateur had put together in a garage. Boxy, awkward, covered in foil and wires, with a great, impractical dish sticking out. Nothing like the smooth ships of science fiction. Just two small, careful, hand-built machines, with one quiet job each: to go, and to keep telling us what they see. And yet these small, awkward things have done something almost beyond imagining. They have crossed the entire solar system. They have flown past Jupiter, past Saturn, past the great pale ring of Uranus, past the soft blue of Neptune. They have looked back from the edge of everything they had ever known and taken a single tiny photograph of our small, warm world from so far away that the Earth was nothing but a single dim pixel of pale blue light, smaller than the speckle of dust on the image. They have crossed the edge of the sun's gentle bubble, slipped out into the dark beyond, and they are still going. Slowly, patiently, faithfully. Two small ships, still going. I find something almost overwhelming in the smallness of them when I let it settle. We did not send great mighty fleets. We did not send vast cities of metal. We sent two small, awkward ships, hand-built by careful people, smaller than a car, with the memory of less than a single photograph between them, and a little warm heart of plutonium each. And they have done more, gone farther, lasted longer than almost anything else we have ever built. The smallness of them is somehow the heart of the wonder. Two little things doing one patient task for 50 years. And tonight, as you rest, they are still doing it. There is something gentle in that smallness, I think, that reaches beyond the ships themselves. We tend to associate doing great things with being great in size, in power, in voice. But the Voyagers quietly remind us that this is not how the universe actually works. The longest journey any human-made thing has ever taken was done by two small, awkward boxes of metal and wire. The farthest anything we have ever built has gone was reached by two patient little things, working slowly and quietly, asking for nothing, going one careful step at a time, year after patient year. Greatness is not always loud or large. Sometimes it is small and gentle and faithful and very, very patient. And those qualities, in their own quiet way, can outlast and outreach almost anything else. There is a comfort in that for me, as I lie in the dark thinking of the Voyagers. Whatever small, patient things you do in your life, whatever quiet, faithful work, whatever gentle care, whatever soft kindness you extend day after day without anyone noticing, those small, patient things may turn out to matter more and travel farther than anything loud or impressive you ever try to do. The Voyagers are proof of that in the gentlest physical way. Two little patient ships doing one quiet task for half a century. And they have gone farther than anything else we have ever made. They left us on two ordinary days in the late summer and early autumn of 1977, almost half a century ago now. There was nothing grand about the days themselves. The world was busy with its usual business. People were going to work, raising children, falling in love and out of it, making dinner. And on two of those ordinary days, on a quiet stretch of Florida coast, two small rockets rose into the sky and carried the two little ships out beyond the air, out beyond the earth, and gave them a gentle push outward into the long dark. Voyager 2 went first in August. Voyager 1 followed 16 days later in early September. The order is the opposite of what you would expect. The second one launched first, but it was the right way around. Voyager 1 was on a faster, shorter route designed to overtake its twin and reach Jupiter and Saturn sooner. Voyager 2 was on a longer, slower path that would let it visit not only Jupiter and Saturn, but far in the future, the cold blue worlds beyond, Uranus and Neptune. A tour no spacecraft had ever made before, and none has made since. The people who built them did not know that summer how long the ships would last. The official mission was for 5 years. 5 years was already a brave ambition for any spacecraft of that age. Most missions to the planets had lasted weeks or months. 5 years was a long stretch to ask a machine to keep working in the cold and radiation of deep space with nothing but its little knot of warm plutonium to keep it alive. So the engineers built them carefully, lovingly, with redundancy upon redundancy, two of everything important in case one failed, and they sent them off, and they hoped, quietly, that the ships might make it through their 5-year tour and bring back the pictures of Jupiter and Saturn that they were promised. That was nearly 50 years ago. The 5-year mission has stretched, year by patient year, into nearly 10 times its original length. The little knots of plutonium are still warm, though gradually cooling. The hand-built electronics are still working, though gradually showing their age. And the ships are still going, still whispering, still doing what they were sent to do. I find a deep tenderness in those 2 ordinary days of liftoff when I think about them now. The people who built the ships did not know that their work would carry on for half a century, that the little machines they assembled with such care would still be alive long after most of them had retired or passed away, that the ships would outlast the careers and even the lives of many of their makers, still patiently doing the work, still patiently calling home. They built the Voyagers with the hope of 5 years, and somehow the ships have given us 50. Whatever care and skill and love was put into them in those workshops in the early 1970s has lasted, and is lasting still, far longer than anyone dared to expect. So when you think of the 2 ships tonight, drifting in the dark, think also of the careful hands that built them long ago, on the other side of half a century, and how those hands, in a strange and gentle way, are still reaching outward, still doing their work in the small, patient ships they sent off on those 2 ordinary days. The Voyagers were not sent into the dark alone. Each one carries, mounted to its outer body, a small, gold-plated copper disc, a record, like the kind that played music in the homes of 1977, with a soft cover etched with simple diagrams to show how to play it. We call them the golden records, and on each golden record, the people who built the ships placed a small, careful selection of what it is to be alive on Earth, in case the ships ever drift past anyone who might want to know. There are greetings on the records, 55 spoken greetings in 55 languages of Earth, each one short and warm. Hello, peace to all of you. May all be well wherever you are. They are spoken by ordinary people, recorded in ordinary studios, in voices of every age and gender, from cultures across the whole world. A whole small world saying gently, hello. There are sounds of Earth, the rumble of a thunderstorm, the crash of ocean waves, the patter of rain on leaves, the wind in tall grass, the chirp of a cricket on a summer night, the song of a humpback whale, slow and strange and unspeakably beautiful, the footsteps of someone walking, the soft sound of a heartbeat, the first cry of a newborn child, the laughter of a person, full and warm, the kiss of one person against another, even the soft electrical hum of the brain waves of a young woman in love, recorded as she thought, gently, about everything she could think of, in case some echo of human feeling could be carried in those waves out into the dark. There is music, Bach and Beethoven and Mozart, of course, but also Chuck Berry rocking and rolling, and a Navajo night chant, and the sound of a Peruvian wedding song, and Indian raga, and Senegalese drumming, and a Bulgarian shepherdess singing alone, and the gentle silver notes of a Japanese bamboo flute, and a soft aboriginal song of mourning, and many more. 27 pieces of music from across the whole world, each one chosen with care, each one a small, precious piece of the song our species sings. And there are images, 115 images encoded into the record in a way that could be played back as pictures by anyone clever enough to figure out the diagrams on the cover. Pictures of a child being born, pictures of people eating together, pictures of forests and rivers and mountains and beaches, pictures of houses and cities, pictures of a man and a woman looking gently at each other, pictures of a mother nursing her baby. A small, careful album of what life looks like on a small, warm world. It is the most tender thing humanity has ever sent into the dark. There is no calculation in it. There is no expectation of return. The chances that anything will ever find the golden records and read them are vanishingly small. The ships are small, and the galaxy is large, and the records are drifting outward at a slow, patient pace toward nothing in particular. The records may never be read by anyone. They will almost certainly never be read by anyone. And yet we sent them anyway. We sent them as a gesture, as a quiet declaration, as a small, careful letter from one small, warm world into the great dark, saying, here is what we are. Here is what it sounds like to be alive on Earth. If you ever find us in some unimaginable far time, here is who we were. I find this almost unbearably beautiful as I lie in the dark and think of it. The Voyagers will outlast almost everything. The little plutonium hearts will go cold in a few more years, and the ships will fall silent, and they will drift on. They will drift longer than Earth has left. They will drift longer than the sun has left. They will drift, in fact, for billions upon billions of years, until long after every star you can see tonight has burned out. And on each one, the small gold record will still be there, with the greetings and the music and the laughter and the heartbeat and the whale song and the photograph of a mother holding her child. A letter from a small, warm world that has long since gone quiet, drifting onward through ages beyond all imagining, carrying our soft hello into the great dark for as long as anything we have ever made can possibly last. We sent a love letter into the cosmos, 2 of them, and tonight they are still drifting outward, carrying our small hello into the long, quiet dark. For their first 12 years, the 2 ships did not drift quietly. They had work to do, a great tour of the outer planets, the most ambitious and most beautiful journey any spacecraft had ever made, and they carried it out with extraordinary gentleness and grace. They reached Jupiter first, the great gas king of our solar system, in 1979. They sent back pictures that took our breath away. The great red spot, that vast storm that has been spinning in Jupiter's atmosphere for at least 400 years, a hurricane larger than the entire Earth, appeared in soft, swirling detail for the first time. The cloud bands of Jupiter, banded in cream and rust and pale gold, were resolved into intricate patterns of turbulence, like the marbling of a great agate stone. The moons of Jupiter, dozens of them, were photographed in close-up. Io, painted in yellows and oranges, alive with volcanoes. Europa, a smooth, pale white shell concealing an ocean of liquid water beneath the ice. Ganymede, the largest moon in the whole solar system. Callisto, ancient and cratered and still. The ships discovered things no one had known were there. Jupiter's thin, gentle rings, faint as a whisper. New moons no one had ever seen. Then on to Saturn. By 1980 and 81, both ships had reached the second great gas giant with its breathtaking rings. Up close, the rings turned out to be made of countless icy particles, organized into thousands of fine, narrow bands and gaps, more intricate than anyone had imagined. The ships photographed Saturn's moon, Titan, wrapped in a thick orange atmosphere, hiding its surface from view, and gave us our first hints that beneath that golden haze might be lakes and rivers of liquid methane, an alien sister of the rain-soaked world we know. There the paths of the 2 ships diverged. Voyager 1, having done its work at Saturn, was flung by Saturn's gravity onto a path that lifted it out of the plane of the planets entirely, heading upward and outward toward the dark. But Voyager 2 had a longer journey ahead. It used Saturn's gravity to slingshot toward Uranus, that pale, tilted ice giant, which it reached in 1986. We had never seen Uranus up close. The first close pictures showed a quiet, pale, blue-green world, featureless to the eye, with a strange, tilted magnetic field and a family of moons of soft beauty. Miranda, with its strange patchwork surface, like a world stitched together from many smaller worlds. Then onward, 3 more years through the dark, until Voyager 2 reached Neptune in 1989, 12 years after it had left Earth. Neptune is the farthest of the great planets, a deep cobalt blue gem in the cold outer dark, and the photographs took the world's breath away. A great dark spot, a hurricane the size of Earth, swirled in Neptune's atmosphere. White streamers of cloud raced across it at supersonic winds, and Neptune's largest moon, Triton, turned out to be one of the strangest worlds yet. A soft, pinkish sphere with geysers of nitrogen erupting into space, the coldest place we had ever directly observed. When Voyager 2 left Neptune in late 1989, the great tour was finally over. 12 years of patient work, 5 planets, dozens of moons, hundreds of thousands of photographs, more discoveries than anyone could count. Both little ships had given us, in those 12 years, a more complete view of our solar system than the whole of human history before them. And now, the work of the planets was behind them. The long, quiet drift outward was about to begin. If you are finding some calm in this gentle journey with me, and you would like more of these quiet drifts through the cosmos to find you on other nights, you might take a soft moment to subscribe. It is the simplest way to let the next one come to you the next time you need a place of quiet to rest. Then let the thought go and return to the gentle dark and to the 2 small ships beginning their long journey outward. Just before Voyager 1 turned its instruments toward the long, quiet outward drift, the people who had built and guided the ship asked it to do one more thing. A single small act, not for science, but for a kind of quiet remembering. They asked it to turn its camera around one last time and take a photograph looking back across the entire vast distance it had already traveled at the small, warm world it had left behind. The photograph was taken in February of 1990. Voyager 1 was already 6 billion kilometers from home, well beyond the orbit of Neptune, drifting slowly outward into the dark. And from that vast distance, it pointed its camera back at the sun and at the tiny worlds clustered close around it, and it gently captured one of the most quietly moving images we have ever made. The photograph showed the Earth as a single point of pale blue light, no larger than a single grain of dust caught in the sunbeam. You could put your finger over the whole world. From 6 billion kilometers away, our entire planet, every mountain, every ocean, every city, every person who had ever lived and ever would live up to that moment, appeared as one small, dim pixel of pale blue light, almost lost in the glare of the distant sun, almost too small to find. They call it the pale blue dot, that single tiny image, and it has become one of the most beloved photographs ever taken, not because of what it shows, which is almost nothing, a single small dot in a dim band of scattered sunlight, but because of what it means. From the perspective of one of our 2 small ships, already so far away that the Earth had shrunk to a single grain of light, we are not vast. We are not central. We are not lost. We are simply small and warm and gathered together on one pale blue dot in a great dark sea, with 2 patient little ships drifting slowly outward, still able to look back, just barely, and see us. There is a quiet tenderness in that photograph every time I think of it. The 2 ships had grown so far away that home itself had become a tiny mote of pale blue light, almost too dim to find. And yet from out there, in the great dark, our 2 little messengers could still see us. they could still look back. They could still recognize, just barely, the small, warm world that had sent them. And then Voyager 1 turned its camera away from the sun for good. It would never take another picture. The cameras were powered down to save energy for the long drift ahead. Whatever else it would do, the ship would do without a sense of sight. From that moment on, the Voyagers would be ears and hearts in the dark, listening and feeling for the gentle textures of the space they were passing through, but no longer seeing anything at all. The last thing they saw before they closed their eyes was us. A single pale blue dot, almost too small to find, a small, warm home receding gently into the dark behind them. I want to dwell a moment longer on the pale blue dot because there is something in it that I find quietly transformative. We so often go through our days feeling that our concerns are large, that our troubles, our hurries, our daily worries are big and pressing and central. But the pale blue dot offers another way to feel our lives. From the perspective of one of our small ships, 6 billion kilometers out into the dark, the entire Earth, with all its drama and ambition and worry, with all its history and all its turmoil and all of its life, is a single quiet pixel of soft blue light. You could blot it out with your thumbnail held against the picture. Every quarrel anyone is having tonight, every worry keeping anyone awake, every loud argument and small grievance and pressing deadline, all of it on that single small pale blue dot. And there is not a diminishment in this when you let it settle. There is rather a gentle perspective, a soft reminder, a quiet invitation to hold our lives more lightly. The things that feel so large from inside our heads are, from outside, very small. Our worries, seen from where the Voyagers are drifting tonight, would not even register. And yet the small, warm dot is also unspeakably precious, precisely because it is so small and so blue and so warm and so alive in the great dark sea around it. The smallness does not diminish the preciousness, it reveals it. So when you next find yourself caught in some pressing trouble that feels like it fills the world, you can, if you like, remember the pale blue dot. Remember that from out there, where the 2 small ships are drifting tonight, your whole world is a single, quiet pixel of pale blue light. The troubles that feel so large are small. The small things, the warmth, the breathing, the love, the simple act of being alive on a small, warm world together, are precious. The smallness reveals the preciousness and gently lifts the weight of whatever was feeling too heavy. The 2 small ships, looking back at us from the long dark, taught us this in one single, quiet photograph 36 years ago. Now I want to take you out with the 2 small ships to the place they were heading, the gentle edge of the sun's quiet domain. You may not have thought of the sun as having a domain, as having an edge, a boundary, a place where its influence simply runs out. But it does, and it is one of the most beautiful, gentle features of our small corner of the cosmos. The sun is not just a glowing ball that sits at the center of our planets. It is a great, quiet wind blowing outward in every direction, a soft, constant stream of charged particles flowing gently outward from the sun's surface at speeds we can hardly imagine. filling all the space around it, pushing outward, outward, outward into the dark. We call this stream the solar wind. It blows out of the sun's poles and equators and everywhere in between, in every direction, all the time. It has been blowing for as long as the sun has been shining, 4.5 billion years, and it will keep blowing for as long as the sun lasts. And as it blows outward, it carves out, in the space around the sun, a great soft bubble, a region where the sun's gentle wind is the dominant thing, pushing outward, holding back the thinner winds of interstellar space, defining a region we now call the heliosphere. The heliosphere is the sun's quiet kingdom. It stretches out in every direction, far beyond all the planets, past Earth, past Mars, past Jupiter and Saturn and Uranus and Neptune, past even Pluto, past the great Kuiper belt of icy worlds, on outward for billions of kilometers more. And then, at last, somewhere out in the dark, the solar wind reaches a place where it finally can no longer push outward, where the gentle, thin winds of interstellar space, the soft pressure of the gas and plasma between the stars, finally pushes back hard enough to stop it. That boundary, where the solar wind ends and the interstellar medium begins, is called the heliopause. It is the edge of the sun's voice, the outermost shore of the sun's quiet domain. For most of human history, we had no idea this boundary existed. We knew about the sun, of course, and we knew about the planets, and we knew about the stars beyond. But the soft bubble of solar wind that the sun blows around itself, that was invisible to us, undetectable from Earth, unknowable except by sending something out there to measure it directly. And the two little ships were the first, and so far the only, things we have ever sent that have gone that far. I find a quiet wonder in the thought of the heliosphere when I rest with it. We live, all of us, every animal and plant and person, every ocean and mountain and cloud, deep inside the sun's gentle bubble. The sun is not just a distant fire in the sky. It is a soft presence wrapped all around us, its quiet wind flowing past Earth, past Mars, past all the worlds, defining a great spherical region in space that is the sun's quiet home. And we live in the warm, bright heart of that home, sheltered by the sun's gentle breath, surrounded for billions of kilometers in every direction by the soft presence of our parent star. The heliopause, the gentle outer shore of all of that, is where the two little ships were quietly headed. Voyager 1 crossed the heliopause in August of 2012. Voyager 2 followed in November of 2018. I want to dwell on those moments because there is a quiet beauty in them that I do not want us to miss. The crossing was not visible to the eye. There were no flashing lights, no dramatic boundaries, no glowing membrane to push through, just a gentle, gradual transition in the soft, thin gas around the ship that the ship's careful instruments could feel. The number of particles streaming past from the sun began to fall away. The number of cosmic ray particles from interstellar space began to rise. The direction and strength of the magnetic field gently shifted, like a quiet change in the wind on a still day. And from those soft, gradual changes, the people back on Earth watching the slow trickle of data come in from billions of kilometers away, gradually realized the ship had crossed over. It was no longer in the sun's domain. It was out in the gentle dark beyond, drifting now through the soft, thin interstellar medium that fills the space between the stars. I find the gentleness of the crossing especially moving. There was no sharp line, no wall, no door. The ship simply drifted, slowly, across a soft, gradual transition zone, moving from the sun's gentle wind into the gentle winds of the interstellar medium, like a small boat passing slowly out of a quiet bay and into the open sea. The cosmos did not announce the crossing with any fanfare. It simply let the ship through, gently, into the great dark beyond. And here is what I find almost unbearably tender when I think about it. By the time we, here on Earth, understood that the ship had crossed, the actual crossing was already months in the past. The ship had been drifting in interstellar space for months before we realized it. Because the signal travels at the speed of light, and the ship was so far away that its radio whispers took many hours just to reach us, and the gradual changes in the data took weeks of careful analysis to interpret. By the time we understood what had happened, the small, patient ship was already long past the boundary, drifting calmly in the new dark, having quietly done its great deed without anyone knowing for a long while. There is something I find moving in that. The greatest crossing any human-made thing has ever made happened in absolute quiet, with no one watching, far from any audience, on a small, patient ship doing its quiet work in the deep dark. Voyager 1 was the first thing built by human hands ever to pass beyond the gentle bubble of the sun into the wider interstellar dark, and it did so alone, in silence, far from any cheering, far from any acknowledgement. The ship did not know that it had crossed. The ship does not know anything. It simply did its quiet work, and gradually, over many weeks, we here at home pieced together what had happened and gently realized, yes, it has gone over. It is out there now, in the great dark beyond the sun's reach. We celebrated, of course, when we understood, but the crossing itself had happened in the gentle silence of deep space, witnessed by no one at all, except, in some sense, by the small, patient ship that did it. What is it like out there, beyond the heliopause? What kind of place have the two ships drifted into? It is, I want to say first, still very much in our solar system, in one sense. The sun's gravity still reaches the Voyagers, and will reach them for thousands of years more. There are still small, icy bodies in the great outer cloud around the sun, the Oort cloud, an enormous spherical halo of frozen objects that extends outward for a light year or more, that the ships have not yet passed. So the ships have not left the sun's gravitational neighborhood, not by a long way. What they have left is the sun's wind, the sun's voice, the gentle bubble of charged particles that the sun blows around itself. They have crossed into the interstellar medium, the soft, thin gas and plasma between the stars, even though they are still, in a deeper sense, part of our sun's wider home. But that distinction matters. The interstellar medium is a different kind of place from the heliosphere. It is, for one thing, denser. Just outside the heliopause, the gas of interstellar space is several times denser than the solar wind was inside. Denser, that is, in particles per cubic meter. Though we are still talking about almost nothing, the interstellar medium is among the emptiest things known to nature. Even after the gentle increase in density, there are only a handful of particles in each cubic centimeter. But after the long, sparse stretch of the outer solar wind, that small increase in density is detectable, and the Voyager's instruments felt it as they crossed. The temperature is different too. Out in the interstellar medium, the gas is colder, in a sense, though that word means something different out there than it does on Earth. The particles are moving at slower average speeds than the hot, fast solar wind. The magnetic field is different. Woven through the interstellar gas is a soft web of magnetic fields belonging not to the Sun, but to the wider galaxy, the slow, gentle magnetic structure of the Milky Way itself. And those fields the Voyagers can feel with their magnetometers, soft and steady, the magnetic breath of our galaxy. And there is something almost musical that the ships hear out there in the new dark. The plasma of interstellar space, the thin gas of charged particles, vibrates gently, in waves and oscillations, in response to passing disturbances. And the Voyager's instruments can detect these vibrations and translate them, in a sense, into sound. The first time we listened to what Voyager 1 was hearing in interstellar space, what came back was a soft, slow whistle, a low, quiet hum with gentle higher harmonics, the sound of the interstellar plasma vibrating around the small, patient ship. It is the sound of the place between the stars, soft, slow, gentle, almost like the distant murmur of an ocean heard from a hill, or the slow, patient breathing of some immense, quiet thing. The first sounds ever from beyond the sun's quiet bubble, a soft hum, the patient breath of the wider galaxy. I find a deep tenderness in the thought that the two little ships are hearing this every moment of every day, the soft, slow plasma song of interstellar space, and faithfully whispering it home. Each day, the Deep Space Network's enormous antennas on Earth listen patiently to the faint whisper of the ships and gather, drop by drop, the soft data that includes those quiet plasma songs of the interstellar medium. The first music from beyond the sun, a soft hum brought home by two small ships for us to hear. Let me give you a feeling for how far away the two ships are now, because the distance is part of the tender wonder of all of this. Voyager 1, the farther of the two, is now more than 24 billion kilometers from Earth. That number is too large to picture directly, so let me put it in terms of light. Light is the fastest thing in the universe. It travels at 300,000 kilometers every second. Light from the sun takes a little over 8 minutes to reach Earth. Light from the planets takes minutes to hours to reach us. But the light from Voyager 1's small radio whisper takes more than 23 hours to reach us. A day, nearly a full day, for light itself to cross the distance between us and the small ship. If Voyager 1 sends a signal home right now, that signal will not arrive on Earth until tomorrow at about this same time. And if we, here, were to send a signal out to Voyager 1, a simple, "Hello, are you still there?" that signal would not reach the ship for nearly a full day, and the ship's reply, if it sent one immediately, would not arrive back at Earth until 2 days later. This means that talking to the Voyagers is not a conversation in any ordinary sense. It is a slow, patient exchange of letters across an immense gulf of time and space. We tell them something, and we wait. They tell us something. Actually, they have already told us something a day ago, and we receive it now, gently, drop by drop. The signal from Voyager 1 reaches Earth so faint, so weak, that it is one of the quietest, deliberate signals anyone has ever tried to hear. By the time the ship's whisper reaches us, it has spread out across the vast dark between us and grown so thin that the antennas on Earth have to listen with extraordinary patience, gathering single tiny photons of radio light, drop by drop, hour by hour, to assemble even a few faint bits of information out of the deep quiet. But we hear them. Every day, somewhere on Earth, at the Deep Space Network's 3 great antenna sites, one in California, one in Spain, one in Australia, placed evenly around the globe so that no matter how Earth turns, at least one of them is always pointed at the Voyagers. Quiet engineers and astronomers listen patiently for the faint whisper of the 2 small ships. And the ships, faithful as ever, are still talking, still sending home their soft songs of interstellar plasma, their measurements of magnetic fields, their patient, quiet readings of the great dark they are drifting through. And every day, after the long delay of the speed of light itself, the small, soft data arrives and is gathered and is read. There is something I find almost unbearably tender in that. 2 tiny ships, smaller than a small car, drifting in the dark so far away that their whispers take a day to reach us, and every day we listen and we hear them. The quietest, most patient long-distance conversation any beings have ever had. A whisper from out beyond the edge of the sun, every day, faithfully, year after year. And our quiet antennas, every day, faithfully, listening for the whisper and gently piecing it together. If you would like more of these quiet drifts through the cosmos to find you on other nights, subscribing is the easiest way to let the next one come to you. And then let the thought go and return to the long quiet that holds the 2 little ships and you together tonight. There was one gentle surprise the Voyagers found just before they crossed into interstellar space that I want to share with you, because it is one of the most quietly lovely things they discovered. For about a year before each ship crossed the heliopause, the instruments noticed something strange and gentle. The space they were drifting through was changing in a particular way. The number of solar particles was falling away faster than expected. The number of interstellar particles was rising. But the magnetic field, the sun's magnetic field, which the ships had been measuring all their lives, was still there, still the sun's. As though the ships were drifting through a soft transitional region, no longer fully part of the solar wind, but not yet fully into interstellar space either. Some quiet boundary layer where the sun's magnetic fingerprint still lingered, even as the gentle currents had already begun to shift. The scientists, gently surprised, gave this transitional region a quiet name, the magnetic highway. Because the sun's magnetic field lines in this region seemed to gently align themselves with the interstellar magnetic field beyond, as though, at the edge of the sun's domain, the sun's quiet magnetic breath was reaching outward, smoothing itself gently into the wider magnetic breath of the galaxy beyond, and creating, for a soft transitional stretch, a kind of magnetic on-ramp from one to the other. I find that almost unbearably tender somehow. At the edge of the sun's quiet domain, our parent star's magnetic field does not just stop abruptly. It reaches out, gently, and smooths itself into the wider magnetic structure of the galaxy. There is a soft, transitional region, a quiet handoff, a magnetic blending, a gentle gradient where the sun's breath touches the galaxy's breath, and the two slowly become one. The Voyagers drifted through it, slowly, feeling it all the way, and brought back the gentle news of how the sun says goodbye, in magnetic terms, at the edge of its home. And here is something else lovely. The interstellar magnetic field, which the ships now feel directly, has its own slow songs and patterns. It is woven through the gas of the galaxy on enormous scales, soft magnetic structures that stretch across hundreds and thousands of light years, the slow, patient magnetic breath of the Milky Way itself. By measuring this field directly, the Voyagers have given us our first close-up readings of the galaxy's own magnetic field, the very faint, slow currents that thread our spiral home together on the largest scales. It is as though the Voyagers, after a lifetime of listening to the sun's voice, have begun to listen to the wider, quieter song of the whole galaxy. And they are faithfully bringing that song home to us, drop by drop, every day, in the soft data they whisper across the long dark. I want to dwell for a moment on what the Voyagers are physically made of, because there is a tenderness in the materials and the craftsmanship of them that I do not want us to pass over. The two ships were built in the early 1970s with the technology of that time. To get a feeling for how old that is, consider this. The Voyager's onboard computers have a total memory of about 70 kilobytes each. That is less memory than is needed to hold a single small photograph from any modern phone. The ships fly into the dark with the computing power of a calculator from the 1980s. They do not have processors anything like the ones we use today. They do not have flash memory. They store their few precious bits of data on tape, physical magnetic tape, like the cassettes that played music in 1977, that has to spin and read and rewind every time the ship wants to remember something. The tape recorders have been winding and rewinding for 50 years in the cold, deep dark, and they still work. The cameras, when the ship still had them, used Vidicon tubes, a kind of early electronic imaging device that has not been used in commercial cameras for decades. The radios are gentle and small. The antennas are precisely shaped metal dishes. The wires inside the ship were laid by hand, carefully, by technicians at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California. The instruments were calibrated and tested and assembled with extraordinary care in clean rooms by people who knew that whatever they sent up would never come back to be repaired. And the small, slow warmth at the heart of each ship, the thing that keeps it alive, is a small canister of plutonium dioxide, slowly decaying, a little radioactive ember gently glowing with the warmth of its own slow decay. The decay heat is converted by a careful arrangement of thermocouples into electrical power. When the ships left Earth, each of them had about 470 watts of power available. After half a century of gentle decay, they have about half that. And it is still slowly fading at the rate of about 4 watts each year. In another 10 or 15 years, the ships will run out of power, and the soft warmth at their hearts will no longer be enough to run any instruments, and the small ships will gently fall silent. But I want you to feel how much love is in the construction of them. Every one of those careful technicians, every one of those careful engineers, every wire, every piece of foil, every thermocouple, every magnetic tape, every tiny instrument, all of it was made by human hands on Earth in the early 1970s, with the care that comes from knowing that this small thing you are building with your own hands is going to leave Earth and never come back, and will outlast you and outlast almost everyone you know, and will keep doing its quiet work in the dark for as long as it can. There is something almost prayerful in that kind of building. A small thing, built lovingly by hand, sent off into the long dark, faithful to its task long after its makers have grown old and rested. The Voyagers are not just machines. They are something more like crafted gifts. They are small, careful works of human love, sent out into the night, carrying our small hello, doing their quiet work for as long as their gentle plutonium hearts can hold out. And tonight, in the long dark, they are still doing it, still drifting outward, still whispering home, still alive. Let me pause here in the middle of our drift outward for something gentle, because as we have been thinking together about these two small ships faithfully drifting in the dark, faithfully whispering home, I am struck by something tender. In a small way, we are not so different from the Voyagers. We are also small, warm, patient things, drifting through a vast dark, doing our quiet work for as long as our gentle hearts can hold out. The small, careful warmth that keeps us alive will, like theirs, one day fade. But for now, while it lasts, we get to do something extraordinary. To be conscious, to look up, to wonder, to send small messages of love out into the dark in whatever ways we can. The Voyagers were given that task by the people who built them. We have been given it too, in our own way, by whoever or whatever assembled us with such care into the warm, aware shapes we briefly are. And tonight, two of our small messengers, faithful and patient, are still doing their work out beyond the edge of the sun's quiet bubble, sending us home soft data, soft songs of interstellar plasma, soft news from the great dark beyond. They are doing for us what we, in our quiet ways, also try to do for each other, carrying messages, reaching out, whispering back. So if it moves you, even a little, to think of the two small ships drifting in the dark tonight, still alive, still whispering, still doing the long, quiet work we sent them out to do, I would gently invite you to do something. In the comments below, if you like, you might leave a single word or a single sentence that you would send to the Voyagers if you could. Something simple, a small hello, a quiet good night, a soft thank you for 50 years of patient work, or any small word your heart wants to send out into the dark. They will not, of course, receive it. The Voyagers cannot hear us. They only speak outward, faintly, never listening in return. But the words will gather here, in the soft, warm space of this small corner of the internet, among everyone else who is listening tonight. A small chorus of quiet messages sent in spirit to the two faithful little ships, and to whoever or whatever the ships are quietly drifting toward in the long, unimaginable far. And if these quiet journeys are bringing you any rest, subscribing is the surest way to let the next one find you on another quiet night. The Voyagers were built to keep on faithfully arriving year after year. These videos try to do the same in their own small way, for whenever you need a place of quiet to drift through. But that is all. There is nothing more you need to do tonight. Let the thought go now, and return to the quiet, and to the two small ships out there in the long dark, still gently doing their work for us, still gently calling home. I want to be honest with you about something tender now, because the Voyager story is one of beauty, but also of patient farewell. The small plutonium hearts that keep the ships alive are gently fading. They have been fading since the day the ships were launched. The plutonium is decaying at a slow, steady rate, and as it decays, the warmth it produces gradually diminishes, and the electrical power available to the ships shrinks. The engineers on Earth have been managing this slow decline for decades with extraordinary care, turning off instruments one by one that are no longer essential, conserving every precious watt, finding clever ways to keep the most important sensors alive on less and less power. They have stretched the lives of the ships far beyond anyone's original hopes. But the gentle decline is real, and at some point in the next 10 or 15 years, the ships will simply run out of the warmth they need to function, and they will fall very gently into silence. It will not be a sudden ending. It will be a slow, gentle quieting. One by one, the remaining instruments will go dark as the power becomes too low to run them. The radio transmitter, which is among the most power-hungry parts of the ship, will eventually be unable to send any signal home. And then, very gently, the small ships will become quiet, still drifting, still moving, still real, but no longer talking to us. The engineers think it will probably happen sometime in the mid-2030s, maybe 2035, maybe 2036, maybe a little later, depending on how skillfully they manage what remains. Perhaps in a decade, perhaps in 15 years, the last whisper of Voyager 1 will reach Earth, a small, soft signal, gently fading into static, and then there will be no more. The patient antennas on Earth will listen and listen and listen, but the small ships will have grown too quiet to be heard, and then they will drift on in the long dark, in silence. They will not stop moving. They will just stop speaking. The Voyagers will keep on going for billions of years, doing the same quiet drift outward that they have been doing all along, but with no one on Earth ever again hearing from them. I find this almost unbearably tender. Two small, patient ships, faithful for nearly 50 years, gently winding down toward their final quiet. The slow goodbye is not yet upon us. We still have years left of their whispers, of their gentle data, of their soft songs of the plasma between the stars. But the goodbye is coming, in its own slow, patient way, and it is worth being honest about it tonight. The Voyagers will not whisper forever, and yet there is something deeply peaceful in the way it will happen. There will be no crash, no failure, no dramatic ending, just a slow, gentle quieting, as their soft, warm hearts grow gradually too faint to power their voices. They will simply drift on in silence, doing the same outward drift they have always done, but no longer talking. It is the gentlest of endings for the patient work of 50 years. And then they will continue in the quiet, drifting outward on a journey that has only just begun. I want to dwell on this gentle ending a moment longer because it asks something tender of us. We have not yet experienced the silence of the Voyagers. For nearly 50 years they have been with us, distantly, faintly, but present, with their soft, daily whispers arriving at our patient antennas. They have been a constant, quiet companion to several generations of engineers and astronomers and dreamers. Whole careers have been built on their whispers. Whole lives have been lived in their company in a quiet way. And in the next decade or so, that company will gradually end.